Welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Evolution. And today I'm delighted to be joined by Naveen Agnihotri. So Naveen and I met, about a year ago, I think, and maybe just over a year ago. Naveen is now the founder and head of AI at Planeflow. And Naveen has over 20 years experience in AI, has founded multiple fintech companies with a background in neuroscience initially. So I'll be honest, when we met a year or so ago, people weren't talking about AI as obviously as they are now. And the volume of rhetoric around AI wasn't as prevalent as it is now. So I think when we had that first conversation in Starbucks in Singapore, I was a bit blown away by the level of innovative thinking that you were articulating around how the future might look and how things are going to be done very differently to, at the time, what was a general consensus around how AI was being used. And I've been really looking forward to this one, to be honest, because I think over the past few months, we've done quite a lot of podcasts with people from big corporates, big banks, large financial institutions, and they've all brought up super interesting and super relevant points. But I think this one is going to be, from my perspective, super exciting, because I think as somebody who is passionate about entrepreneurialism as well as AI, I think you come at that from both angles, and I'm quite interested to have this discussion. So, Naveen, do you want to introduce yourself just briefly?
Yes. Thank you so much for inviting me, Jake. First of all, like you said, I have a background in neuroscience and AI academically. And then about 20 years ago, I embarked on an entrepreneurial journey, starting a series of AI companies. AI, by the way, is a overloaded term. It means different things to different people and has meant different things for the past 50 years. Right? When I began doing AI, it was the process of building models. So you needed lots of data. You had to bring your own data, proprietary data. You built models. They solved one small slice of a problem. And then if your model was any good, then you had to wrap it around something and build it into a product and then hope that somebody buys it. And then there's a process of, in a startup, there's a process of like product market fit and good luck, and I did this for 20 years. I've been doing this for a long time. Like you mentioned, I've started a couple of fintech companies, and before that, a number of other AI product companies in a wide variety of different types of products. What is different now, what I've seen change, is what AI means, especially what Gen AI means, and what it allows people to do. You no longer need to bring proprietary data. You no longer need to build your own models. There are excellent models available that have used all the data in the world. So as an AI practitioner, you, and by the way, everyone should be an AI practitioner, yes? You now have an enormously powerful tool set at your disposal, and now you can go, right? You never had this tool set 3 years ago or 4 years ago or 10 years ago. So I love being in this AI because as an AI OG, I'm like, look at this. This is fantastic. This is great. All the things we will do.
Awesome. So I think the topic of this podcast was foundations for an AI-ready organization. And I know before launching Planeflow, you had a lot of experience in consulting to small and large organizations about AI and AI readiness and AI adoption. But I think, from everyone that I've spoken to, you mentioned being an AI OG. And I think a lot of people these days are claiming to be AI experts. From the perspective of multiple industries, I think there's a differentiation of opinion as to whether AI is more focused on the technical side or whether you need an industry or functional expert with, grounding of how AI can solve problems within that industry or within that function. But genuinely, I think you genuinely are an AI expert and AI practitioner, and I think you probably can offer a slightly different perspective than others that we've had on the podcast before. So I'll jump in with a couple of questions, but feel free to take it in any direction that you want to go in. So AI has moved from experimentation to execution for a lot of companies, particularly recently. From your perspective, what differentiates organizations that scale AI effectively from those that stay kind of stuck in POC or pilots?
I think it's so that's a very interesting question and quite relevant because a lot of companies that I speak to are in some pilot mode. And you are being very kind to pilot mode. It's a lot of times that you ask them about AI, and you're like, oh, yeah, Jim Bob there is like, that's our AI guy. And then you speak to Jim Bob, and like Jim Bob's using ChatGPT for something, and that's it. Like that's the AI strategy. It's Jim Bob will come up with the strategy any day now. Yeah. That's the pilot. So the difference really comes from, in my experience, from executive sponsorship. Right? The organization, someone in the organization needs to realize what AI can do for them. Now, that's not always the CEO, although I do find that CEOs are very often like rah-rah AI. Sometimes because they feel like it's good for investors or good for public presentations or good for their LinkedIn posts or whatever. But the fact of the matter is that you need sort of 3 or 4 components. Right? First, you need some level of belief that that we have processes in this organization that could be automated, could be benefited, could be enhanced with AI, with what the AI can offer. Right? That realization needs to come from somewhere, right? And someone in the company needs to have it. Usually it's a combination of employees, of consultants, of someone that builds a plan to say, this is, let's say, our sales organization, this is our current process, and this is what it could look like with AI. Right? So somebody has to come up with that plan. And then somebody has to execute that plan, right? Do you have a head of AI? Do you have a division of AI? Do you want to give it to the salespeople to implement it themselves? Right? Going back to our example of sales. So then there is so you need the concept to exist at an organization sort of high level. Then you need a plan to execute it. Then you need the people to really go and say, here are the people that are going to execute it. And then you have to really follow through with it and say, we did it. Now what? We automated this thing, or now we have a whole new way of doing sales. Great. We need to keep on with it. In the old days, to give you a comparison, also to show you how old I am, I'm old enough to remember how email was adopted in companies. And it was the same thing. It was like, how will we use email? Great. Let's get everyone an email account. Done. Everyone has sent out one email. So now they're all familiar with the process, and that's it. The regular day continues just like it was. The email is like a thing on the side, right? So going back to your question, what drives success is really you need to put a bunch of things in place at a high level in the organization. And then you need to follow through with it and say, that is our new process. That is our new thing. Otherwise, why the hell did we do all of this AI? Right? We did it because we wanted a whole new way of doing sales. We wanted a whole new way of doing finance, or we had a whole new way of doing whatever it is. This process that we used to do. Now it's better, faster, smoother, much more capable. We're reaching out to 80% more people now than we used to in our sales pitches, right? Whatever it is. So that's really those are some of the factors that, in my opinion, I've seen work. I'm happy to dig into any specific thing that you want me to.
Yeah, I might go in a slightly different direction based on that answer. So, and I guess one of the things that has come up commonly when in podcasts that we've done with people from large organizations is data process, data quality, data accessibility, and then formalization of a process, and then automation of that process through AI adoption. And that's a fairly kind of standardized way of rolling something out in a large enterprise organization. I think one of the concepts or one of the hopes is that from an entrepreneurial standpoint within an organization, somebody will invent something which is an entirely new way of doing things. And I'm thinking about the answer you just gave. Then I'm also thinking about a post that you wrote on LinkedIn a couple of months ago about the horseshit problem on the streets of London, and how everyone was trying to solve that problem. But then somebody invented the car, and it wasn't a problem anymore because there were no horses. And how do you balance then the automation of existing processes which operate in an organization? So, for example, functional processes within finance, within HR, within any corporate function, with the ability to innovate and potentially create something which is a game changer, an industry game changer.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up my horseshit post. It comes up very often in conversations I have with friends as well. Actually, I've been talking about the horseshit problem for 20 years, and people are continuously entertained. Listeners who want to understand that, please feel free to look at my LinkedIn post, or just look up the horseshit problem of the 1890s on the internet. Anyway, so I think it's wrong to focus on process. Again, I'm going to take a very orthogonal view, probably, to what somebody at a large company would say. Yes, I don't like focusing on processes. I like to focus on outcomes. Right? Your process is what it is because of who your company is, because of who your people are, because of what technology that you have ever had, because of the fact that you acquired these 6 other companies along the way, and they had this and whatever. Right? That's all good. Your process is your process. I have zero desire, and really, you should have zero desire to automate your process or to apply AI to your process. Right? If you do that, then you're in the business of trying to solve the horseshit problem, right? Which is there's a lot of horseshit on the streets. How do we clean it up? All those things are wrong. You have to look at outcomes, right? The outcome is we want to travel. What's a better way to travel, right? The outcome is you want to have your data lives in Excel spreadsheets, and you want to have a balance sheet prepared across 35 entities. That's the problem that you have, right? The process involves a bunch of people doing a bunch of different things, Excel spreadsheets, some external consultants, and this and that, whatever. Right? Or your process is that you have a bunch of people who are not on a bunch of salespeople who are not on any system, doing something that they do on their own using WhatsApp to communicate, and the outcome that you want is 50% growth in these 3 markets. That's the path you have to chart. It's not about so you could, going back to your point about let's standardize our data, let's do this, whatever. You want to imagine what you want the future to be. I want to have my people. They hate using my salespeople. Hate using Excel spreadsheets. They hate using HubSpot. They've never used anything like that ever in their lives, right? Now, guess what? We can give them a tool. They can speak their notes into a format. They can get the guidance on in a text on WhatsApp, not in HubSpot. Any number of things are possible with AI, but somebody has to imagine what that can be. Yes. So I want to go back to something that you said earlier, which was, is it more important to have somebody who's capable of understanding AI or what AI makes possible, or is it more important to have domain expertise? Right? There was a yin and yang thing that you had pointed to earlier, and the answer is both. Right? Because like I'm saying, I am trying to imagine what the ideal sales process for your company looks like. Guess what? I can't imagine it, right? The imagination has to live somewhere between me, who's an expert in AI, and you, who's the head of sales for your organization. Right? So between the two of us, we need to come up with a sort of ideal outcome. And then we chart a path to that ideal outcome. And then we say, what do we have today? What data do we have today? What data do we need there? Therefore, what data do we need to collect? What standardization exists today? So now everything's on Excel spreadsheets, whatever your process is, right? It's all in Excel right now. How do we get from that to a standardized report? Right? Used to be, well, you need a system, you need an ERP, you need a HubSpot, you need whatever, Oracle, right? With AI, you don't. You really don't need Salesforce. You really probably don't need HubSpot. Right? You don't need HubSpot in the way you needed it 5 years ago to standardize your process. You don't need any of these things because those things were part of your process. Right? Again, you have to focus on outcome. What is it that you want? What is it that your salespeople want? How do we get to that using AI tools?
That's definitely different thinking to traditional corporate thinking, or I guess there's certain synergies between the kind of L1 to L5 McKinsey model of thinking about the strategy followed by the process followed by the people and the execution. So if you think about that ideation and coming back to the point of having a heavily technical or heavily AI specialized person more from a technical standpoint, and then having a head of sales or a business user, often those two entities or two personalities struggle to connect. So a lot of the time we're thinking about senior appointments within sometimes the CDO historically or the CAIO. It's increasingly a title that seems to be raising its head. That person is either ex-industry, so for example, like an old school insurance salesperson who's moved up the ranks, understands the customer, understands how the existing processes work, understanding how customers think, understanding how to generate revenue. And that person trying to learn AI with the availability of tools could happen with varying degrees of success. Or you have somebody who is an AI expert trying to learn the business. And it's very infrequent that we come across people who are both in one individual. So how do you see those two polars, I'll term it a polar, kind of combining to get the result that you want, bearing in mind that the person with both of those skills doesn't often exist?
So I want to choose option C, none of the above. Yeah. So that's going to be the theme of this podcast. I think the title needs to be option C, none of the above. But you cannot. I don't know. It's very difficult to actually imagine what AI can do for you unless you really are using AI. Yeah. So the wrong way to think about AI is to say I will learn AI. Yes. In fact, I think that's the wrong way to learn anything. Right. The wrong way to learn about solving mathematical equations is to solve mathematical equations. You have to actually solve the mathematical equation. Right. The only way you learn AI is by doing AI. You need to adopt it in your own life. You need to start using it for everything. If you think you want to learn agentic AI, you shouldn't be doing a course on agentic AI. You should be doing agentic AI. Build yourself 5 agents. One that books your train tickets. One that books your organizes your calendar. Whatever. Right? Do it. Own it. See what the thing does for you. Yes. You are the person with the problem. I'm speaking now to a business executive who has a problem. Yes, you have the problem. You need to own it, right? You need to understand what AI can do. So you need to have like 20 ideas in your head already. Why can't my people do this? Why can't my people do that? Why are my people stuck doing reconciliations all day long? Why is my ops guy spending 8 hours a day building this stupid report? Right? Whatever it is, right? You need to arm yourself with possibilities based on your own experiences, your own trying out things, right? We used to say, read self-help books or whatever, read books on leadership. Now you need to be doing AI. You don't need to read books on leadership, because if you know half as much AI as the so-called experts out there, you're already a leader. Yes. So you need to learn to do. That's one, right? To do AI. So we all need to be practitioners of AI. First of all, that's my biggest urging, right? Stop taking courses in AI. Do the damn thing. Use it. They're user-facing tools. 10 years ago, when you needed to maybe take a course in AI because machine learning is not intuitive and you can't pick it up on weekend. That's not true anymore. You can pick up the hell thing AI does today. You can pick it up on one weekend, right? Don't spend 8 hours playing golf. Do this instead, right? That's a tough sell, actually. Most people would rather play golf, but anyways, but that's what it takes, right? It's a question of time commitment, right? How do you want to prioritize your time? So that's one piece of it. The business people need to start thinking about AI, right? And now you need to partner with AI people who are solving problems in your domain. Right? So that's the second part of it, which is, it's a little bit like what you mentioned, the sort of AI expert who comes from your domain, but not quite exactly. What you want are AI people who really come from AI and who show you what's possible. They are not from your domain. They are not from your industry exactly. They don't exactly understand all of the problems, but they know what AI can do, right? So now you, Mr. Business Executive, need to find partners with those people, right? And those people could be at a consulting firm. Those people could be anywhere, but somebody needs to show you what is possible, right? And then together. Now we go back to my answer to your first question, which is, you begin by charting a vision, right? Here's where we're going. That's the desired outcome here. We know it's possible. We know we have the data. We know we have the people. We know we have everything. We chart a path. And one thing that got left behind somewhere in this discussion is change management. This is something that I have naively ignored in a lot of projects, and have really received a considerable amount of grief because of that, which is sort of existing people that are used to existing processes, who are really, really not interested in doing your new fangled thing. They don't care. They're like, look, let me just do my job. I want to do this thing and go play with my kid at home. I don't want to learn your new thing. So how do you tackle that? Right? That's really that's something to focus on, is how do you convince someone that something that is good is actually good? The benefits that will accrue to not just to the company, but to them, right? It makes their life easier. It makes everything simpler. It gives them more time to go home and play with their kids.
And how do you do that?
You have to. So we're doing multiple projects right now where that is exactly the issue. You do it slowly and deliberately, by careful planning. And not to repeat the mistakes that I've made. I have always made the assumption that if you make something good, they will use it, and that's not true. So you set up workshops, you set up sessions with every single person where you show them, this is what you do right now. Look what it can look like. Would you like to see it? Right? We know that you spend 2 hours a day making this report, this brain dead report. Look, one click, done. Do you want to see how this is done? Right? Why wouldn't they? Right? So, but you have to do it in a very deliberate way, in a very sort of obvious way. Everybody has pains in their in what they're doing. Everyone has some pain, right? You've got to make sure that you address their pain, and then you just make it very obvious. You have a pain in your tooth, right? Uh, I have this medicine. Look, this person took it. Now they have no more pain. Would you like it? That's it.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's fascinating. I think like one of the ongoing messages that we hear is behavioral change is the component of success in AI adoption that is most underestimated. And
Definitely, and it's not for any wrong reason. I mean, people don't feel the need for AI, just like people didn't feel the need for Facebook in 2005, just because people didn't feel the need for email, similar to how they didn't feel the need for email in 1995. You know, it's not a thing. You're trying to solve your problem. Your problem is you're spending 2 hours a day on building this report, right? And you don't know that AI could or could not solve the problem. Now I'm coming to you and saying, learn AI. And you're like, dude, I got my report to build. I don't have time to learn AI. Learn a new thing? Why? You know? So the way it's all about the way you approach it, right? I need to come to you not as AI. I need to come to you with a solution, right? The wrong thing for me to say is, Jake, here's your AI learning course for the next 3 months. The right thing for me to say is, look, here are the things that you are doing. Here's how you could do them with AI. And now it takes you 80% less time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you have to look at it from a solution rather than AI. I mean, I think the talk needs to stop being about AI, really. It needs to be about solutions.
Yeah. And as AI becomes more embedded in decision making, and both for leaders and for people on the floor executing tasks, but if we focus on it from a leadership perspective, how can leaders balance the automation of decision-making processes with human judgment to kind of maintain transparency and trust within an organization?
So here, I think I will probably give you the only answer that's completely aligned with everybody else who has answered this question. I have a very standard take, which is AI. We didn't hire the AI; we hired you, right? So the AI reports to you. AI is your helper. Is whatever the autonomous agent is your helper. It's your ass on the line. Yes, you are the person that's responsible. The decision is yours. You can use any amount of AI, whatever the hell else you want to use. You want to use AI, BI, CI, don't care. Your decision. You own it. You will defend it. You will be responsible no matter what happens. So that's the way I look at it. Yes, I didn't hire the AI, or we hired you. Yes, so your neck is on the line. So there's no shared decision making in my book. There's only the human decision making, and it's the humans that make it. They can use any tools they want. They can use AI. They can use Facebook. They can use ChatGPT. They can use whatever they want. It doesn't matter. You call up their mom, right? Doesn't matter. Your process is your process, but here you will defend your decision, and you will stand by your decision, and we will hold you accountable.
Yeah. And I guess final question that is relevant to the industry that we operate in, which is people in niche areas where there's shortage of supply and increasing demand, and obviously AI, particularly with industry sector specialism, is increasingly in high demand. But you mentioned having the agency to do AI. Being a primary factor in the success of individuals or setting people up for success in the future. Other than doing AI, what are the skills or capabilities in individuals that you see being most relevant moving forward with the tools or the AI capabilities that are now available?
None. So this is probably not the answer that you usually get. No. So I'm very clear on this, right? As AI practitioners, as AI developers, if we're not giving you, the average person, the average person with no skills other than whatever you already know, if you cannot use my product, then I have failed, right? And I'm telling you, I will not fail. Okay, I will not fail. This industry will not fail. This industry will continue to build products meant for average everyday people that average everyday people will use, right? I'll go back to email. I love talking about email. What skills do you think you needed to use email? There were no training courses. There was no machine learning courses, data science, whatever. Everyone just got an email account and sort of figured out how to use it, right? Everyone just figured out Facebook on their own, didn't they, right? We didn't need to be taught how to use Facebook. When Facebook came up with a new layout, infinite scroll, we didn't all go berserk going, oh my God, now we can't use Facebook anymore, right? Good tools that are meant for regular people to solve their problems will work for regular people with no special other skills. So the thing that you need, there is something that you need, but it's not a skill. It's inquisitiveness. It's curiosity. You need to be willing to learn, right? That's the thing that I think a lot of senior people have lost along the way. Mid-level to senior people is they've gotten set in their ways. They're like, oh, I'm just an accountant. This is what I do. Oh, I'm just an ops guy. I'm just a sales guy. This is what I do. I don't know. What's there to learn? You know, I call up people. I sell them my stuff. They either buy it or they don't buy it or I move on. Right? What's there to learn? Not true. There's stuff to learn every day with AI. Right? So what you need to bring is not skills. What you need to bring to the table is curiosity. If you're bringing curiosity, we will make products for you that simplify your life all day long.
That's fascinating. As I predicted, that you've come at the questions with a slightly different angle, but a really fascinating angle, and I think it's super exciting to hear the sort of passion in your voice for what's possible moving forward. I guess one of the things that did align, I was speaking to the head of AI at a big bank this morning, and we agreed that the great quote that I heard earlier was that most interesting person in the room is the most interested, and I think yes, that's a really good quote to think about, or the lens through which to think about how to improve ourselves. And if anyone listening is looking at how to set themselves up for success in the future, it's not about coming to the table with knowledge, it's about coming to the table with questions, and it's about being interested in the answers.
Absolutely. You need to come interested, you need to come willing to learn, right? Willing to learn about facts, about ways of doing things. You're willing to learn skills. I'm very curious to see to what extent the head of AI at this large bank actually uses AI themselves. How many AI agents do they have working for them? And I'll be willing to bet, and I'm a betting man, I work in startups, the answer is zero. Yes, they have zero AI agents working for them right now. They probably have a team of 120 people and zero AI agents. And that's really and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they are super progressive and have hundreds of AI agents running around all over the place solving all kinds of problems. But that's where you want to be, right? That's the sentiment that I want to leave the users with. This is a skill that's meant for people that do. You've got to do it. You've got to own it. Be curious and learn.
I think that's a brilliant moment to finish on, and great advice for people to take. So Naveen, thank you so much for joining us. I've really enjoyed the conversation. I'm super excited to see how everything kind of manifests in the next months and years, and really appreciate your time today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for inviting me. Great fun.